We got another special guest today. He is a three-time Patriot League champion, and in 2017 he was a second-team All-American at NCAA's. He has a shot put PR of 20 meters on the dot, and he is, I think, the furthest glider in the U.S. That is Luke Warning.
All right, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on?
What's
I'm
up?
doing
Hey,
well. Yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You just said you're going to Penn State tomorrow for the. Is that your first meet you've had this year?
No, I've had a couple indoor
Okay.
meets, but it's been a slow start this indoor season, so I'm hoping to get things on track here coming up.
Heck yeah. You just driving out that day and competing?
Yeah, the past couple meets we stayed the night of, but I'm going out by myself, so I'm just gonna drive up day of. I think it's only like 2.5 hours, so it's not that bad.
Okay.
But
Heck yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. I've just been trying to talk to a bunch of different throwers and everything, and just trying to grow the sport in different ways. But how did you first get into throwing? And like whenever you were in high school and first started out?
yeah, I kind of got into it. I was just playing football, and football was my thing, and I thought I was gonna go play football in college. Um, but my buddy, he said, "Why don't we go throw a javelin in the off season?" I'm like, I don't know about all that, but might as well do something. I wasn't doing any other sport at the time, so really was into throwing jab, but I guess I kind of was best at doing shots. So that was like my sophomore year of high school, and then I got linked up with Dane my senior year, and I said, let's just keep doing this thing, you know.
Heck yeah. And I know I watched the podcast with you and Dane, like the throw show that a few years ago, and he was
Yeah,
talking about how, like, in high school, you threw 46 feet, 11 inches, I think it
yep,
was,
yep.
and then just made that decision to actually continue to throw and get into Lehigh and do it even after, like, not getting in the first semester. So, like, what went into that decision? What made you want to stick with it like that?
I just want to stay with it because I like training at that point. I didn't think I was going to a D1. So I was walking on. I also wasn't like using the coach to get accepted or anything. I got into Lehigh. Um, you know, Actually, I was waitlisted. I sent a lot of emails saying like my dad went there, and my grandma worked on the fact, and they said, hey, we can't accept you the first semester, but you can come in the spring. So I started contacting the coach at the time, and it was his first year. I kept training just for the hell of it. Started saying like, "Hey, I'm going out to these meets. I'm throwing this far," and he's like, "Well, you're going to be the number one guy on the team coming in." I'm like, "All right, I guess I'll show up and try it."
Heck yeah. No, and how much did you throw in that, like, time going from the 46 with the 12, obviously, to, like, when you actually made it to Lehigh? What were you doing with the 16?
I, in terms of training, I swear to God, I think I was training and throwing and lifting 6 days a week. I
Yeah,
think I was training Sunday, and then at some point there was a point where I was working. I was working my summer job a little later. Like after the summer had ended, I was working at the local high school doing grounds work, and they said you can stay on, you can paint some fields, you can cut some grass until the money dries up. So I stayed on with them, and I worked until like 2 o'clock. Waking up early as heck in the morning, um, and then I'd go over and I'd train. I swear it was 6 days a week, and then 2 days a week I was going to do a night school to get some credits out of the way. Then the money dried up, and I started training every single day. In the middle of the day was this. It was just Dane and Jason Kuhn and me out there throwing together. Then we would go lift. Then we'd go chase the chickens around because they had to move. Like we were doing farm work just for fun because there was nothing else going on at the time. Um, Went to a couple summer meets. I think I had some meets where I'm like, okay, 1250 is what I'm throwing. And then we went out to Monmouth through indoors, and I'd never thrown indoors before. I didn't throw indoor in high school. I just used someone's indoor shot, that big old round thing that you're not used to. I didn't think it was a big deal. I'm throwing 1460.
oh wow. So that's like basically matching your high school PR with a 16
Yeah,
with like
yeah.
that
I mean,
quickly.
I don't really know if there's any like key to how I did it. It's not like I was freakishly strong at the time. I mean, you can go find the videos on how big I looked. I wish I knew how I grew that much in that time, and I could bottle that up and I could drink that every single morning. But for
Yeah.
some reason, something clicked, and they just started going.
Heck yeah. And then were you able to, like, you obviously went to Lehigh in the spring. Were you able to compete that year in that spring?
Yeah. I actually they brought the team back like 2 weeks early and went to a couple of meets before the semester started. So like I didn't have any like all the orientations that they did, like, oh, let's get the freshmen in and all that kind of junk. I was on campus by myself in a freshman dorm. Like no one else was even in the hall for 2 weeks until like the other people that were starting in the spring were showing up and all of that. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
there right away. I was competing that first weekend, that first Saturday in January. I was forced to learn everyone on the fly. It was an interesting experience. I don't think that happens a lot.
Yeah, no, I remember being in the dorms like whenever we were over there over the break, and it was just like, what's going on?
Yeah,
No,
it's like a
nobody's
ghost
here.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What would you give, like, if you had some advice for like a high school kid, kind of in a similar situation, especially like reaching out to coaches and different things? I'll have people reach out to me and ask. That's mainly the most like asked question is like, how do you reach out to coaches? And like, so what were you doing there? Like, did you already have a
I
Lehigh in
was,
mind or what?
yeah, I mean, I wanted to go to Lehigh for the degree. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I didn't know what kind of engineer I wanted to be, but I knew I wanted to go to Lehigh or Penn State, and I wanted an engineering degree. And I think the decision came down to, the finance behind it, because Penn State and Lehigh ended up being the exact same amount of money with financial aid and all that junk. And it was just, why not go to Lehigh? There was no real decision making on going to college, on competing. It was, I'm getting my degree so that I can have a degree, and then at the time I wasn't thinking throwing was going to consume my life for the next 10, 15 years, but it kind of took over in that time after I already had a plan, right? So I already knew I was going to Lehigh. I wasn't reaching out before that, right? So it was, hey, you already know what school you're going to go to. Either you're going to walk on there or you're not going to do it anymore. So I never really had to reach out to coaches at all. So I don't really know. I have no idea how that process works.
No, I got you. No, because that's definitely an interesting, like, you know, like way of going about it. Because whenever I was doing it, I definitely reached out to, like, I emailed a few different coaches here and there, and would have people DM me and different things. But no, it's definitely. I mean, obviously, it worked out at, like, by the end of it, because I mean, you were able to win the Patriot League, what, 3 different times, right? And then you were an NCAA champion their senior year.
Yeah, I can't remember how many times I won. I won my senior year both times. I think I won another outdoor. There was another guy who graduated the same year as me, and we went back and forth. I think he would have won indoors my junior year, and I won outdoors my junior year. But then before that, I don't think either of us were there. And injuries and stuff like that. Yeah, I have 3. Yeah, and then outdoor nationals my senior year, first round my junior year. Yep.
Like, yeah. And how much of an impact do you think that the, like, Throws University and Dane and all them that got garage strength they had on, like, basically all the success and stuff you've been able to have?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like, I'm very fortunate that I grew up, 20 minutes from his gym, and then I fell in with the right people and started training with him, because it's not like this is something I could have done on my own. Um, I also got very fortunate that, like, the time that I got started with Dane, he was working hands on with high school throwers, and he was at that level. Um, and we were able to grow. At the time, he was more on the developmental side, and obviously now he's got a crew of more elite athletes, and I kind of slotted in that I was developmental when he was in that developmental phase, and now I'm kind of on the other end now that he's on the other end. So pretty fortunate that it worked out that way.
No, 100%. I know, like, especially where I'm from, like, that's super rare just because, like, I learned watching off YouTube, and then my dad, like, also watching stuff, and we just kind of learned it together. And, like, around the state of Alabama, there's not really many coaches. There's one down in Mobile, Gabor. He's a good coach, but it was just 4 hours away and different things. So, like, that's obviously that's a unique, like, situation. How do you think, like, obviously y'all do all types of lifting, being that they have the weightlifting program and everything in there. What stuff, like, I know the split squats are something y'all do that's kind of not unique, but that's definitely one of the only places I've seen it. So, like, how do you think that stuff really impacts what you got going on?
I mean, I think I'm pretty unique for wanting to do single leg squats. Single leg squats for me don't bug my knees the way that back squats do. So I feel like I can get a good movement in without causing pain and hurting my training the next day. Same way with, I mean, front squats aren't that bad, but they can be kind of a toll. So I think from that movement side, that's why I'm doing that. But I mean, I guess obviously it kind of suits itself to the glide because of the position that you're asking your body to be in. In terms of other strength, I don't know. I don't know how differently I train from other athletes. Like, I feel like sometimes I talk to people and they say they lift a lot less than us. And then I sometimes talk to people and they're lifting so much more than us. So I think there's just different approaches to it. And I think we're always tweaking, working with Dane. This year, I'm definitely feeling a lot less beat down during the week. So I'm hoping to see, more technical progress by not having to only be able to work at 60% technical due to achiness and fatigue. But I don't know. I really don't know. Like, what are you doing for training? How often are you lifting? What kinds of lifts are you doing?
Yeah. So
how much? I guess another big thing is how much are you pushing range of motion?
So me personally, I've tried to do a lot more range of motion stuff like stretching and different type things. And like this year, I've actually started doing like full depth squats compared to like saying like right at parallel. But we usually do in season, we're going to be 3 days a week. Obviously, it's a little bit less. Out of season, we'll go 4 days a week lift, and it'll be clean bench, all that snatch, plyos, different stuff like that. So I mean, I think it's pretty similar. I just think that I don't know. It seems like a good environment you have at Garage Strength to have all those like heavy lifters and people in there doing lifting like in that way, I guess.
Dude, the throwers at GS, when you're training with them, the environment's like hectic and toxic all at the same time. Like, you could have on your program like, oh, I only want you to, when the program says go heavy as hell, you're going for a 10% PR. When it says like go moderate, you're trying to hit 100% of your max. And when it's a light day, you're still like leaving there fatigued. It's just like it's an intoxicating environment of just like you walk in there and the group is ready to run through a concrete wall with you.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty fucking crazy and pretty awesome, dude.
Exactly. I think that's what you need in the weight room. You got to have that competitiveness going at each other and making sure everyone's pushing it all the way. So.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about how the single leg squats like help you, especially in the glide. It like what made you, being that so many people, like obviously I do the spin, I've always done it. I can't glide for shit, but what made you stick with the glide? Like
Well,
actually, you said yes, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I tried. I did it for probably 3 or 4 months my sophomore year. I went to the first indoor meet through like I must have been like a mid 16-meter thrower at that time, right? Maybe I had a PR of 16.25 with the glide. And I went out and I rotated and I couldn't hit positions. And the next day I went, haven't glide in about 4 months, took a glide and how are they landing at 1670 and stuff like that? I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm switching back. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't know if it's just my brain is wired that way. My body wanted to work that way. When I was in college, I had the unique ability, maybe, I don't know if it's unique. I went full speed, 30 throws a day. You can't really do that in rotation. You'll blow through every single position. I was in a position where I wasn't blowing through positions. I was getting the work in. It was jiving with my training mentality, I think. It's also kind of fun to be different, be unique, and be that guy.
Heck yeah. I'm about to say, I'm pretty sure you got the furthest glide in the country, right?
I can't say that for certain. I know there's a couple guys out there. There's CJ Licata. I think he's down at South Carolina. I think he's coming back from some injuries, but he has a great technical glide. I love the way he moves. Cord Ferguson used to do it, and he had a better mark than me. Obviously, you probably know him.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys out there that, I see Franco Lumba might be training again. He's Congolese. Eric Favors from our crew was out in, he was all over Europe and, Asia. And he, I think, saw him. And I think he's pushing again for 2024. So I don't think it's necessarily dead. I do think there is kind of a vacuum for technical know-how in the glide. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but there are definitely people who would be able to glide further than they rotate, but there might not be the same level of resources for it.
Yeah, I was about to say I tried it a little bit, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me at all. I could spin way better than I could glide, like always.
Yeah.
But so obviously you were able to throw like your senior year, make NCAAs, finish as a second-team All-American. What was it like making that transition from going from a college athlete to then being like post-collegiate and still continuing to throw?
Well, I really struggled with that. My going into my senior year, I was kind of torn up. I remember working my internship and waking up early as hell in the morning and going up and throwing, and then working the 9 to 5 internship, and then going over to the gym and lifting. And I remember thinking, God damn, this is tough. I remember waking up in the morning and seeing rain and saying, I don't want to go and train, and texting my coach and saying, hey, it's raining, I'm not going to throw today. And him saying, yeah, whatever. That's your decision. If you don't want to do it, then don't get better. And I'm like, God damn it, he's so right. But I remember struggling so hard with that. And I remember talking to, she was one of my teammates, but then became one of the coaches on our team, a multi named Brooke Astor. I remember talking to her in between, that summer, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I remember talking through it, and I don't know if she said it or I had the epiphany, but, I realized if it really is a priority for me, I'm going to make it work. And that's how it's always been. And, every single time I went into a job interview, at first I was afraid to talk about it because I thought people were going to, not want to hire me because I had something else going on. But I'm like, if they don't want to hire me because I'm doing this and I'm leaving work when I'm supposed to leave work and I'm not working the overtime because I got to train, then I don't want that job anyway. So the drive was never in question. And at this point, being in it for 10 years, it's not a decision to show up. It's just habit. It was more just making and carving out that space in life to make it happen. And all you got to do is just be transparent and say, this is something that needs to happen.
You're talking about how you had gotten your other job and everything. Like, what was your schedule like during that time? Because, like, obviously you're working a full-time job and still trying to train and throw. Like, what was that like?
So my first job out of school, my throws coach my senior year, I think it's his uncle or his cousin, he worked down at a chemical manufacturing plant, and I was a chemical engineer. So I got in with him, started at this company, and it was shift work. And I didn't know I was getting into shift work. I got pretty fortunate that they put me on second shift. So I started out, I was working 3, what the hell was it? It was like 3 to 11. I was training,
Okay.
I was waking up and training at GS, which was about half hour from my parents' house. I would train until probably like 1. It was a manufacturing job. I was working on a manufacturing floor. I was getting sweaty. I was getting dirty. So what I
Yeah.
would do is I would go to the gym. I would train. I would get myself dirty as hell training, and then I would shower off with the garden hose in the back, throw on essentially, ratty gym shirts and work pants, and go into the office, eat my damn lunch, and then go off to the production line and sweat my ass off there until 11 o'clock. Then I would drive home and rinse, repeat. That was about an hour away from my house, though. Got out of that situation, got into another manufacturing plant up probably only 15 minutes away from my parents' place. But their shift work is, at first I thought I was going to be second again, which would have been like 3:30 to 11:30. Not a big change, especially when I'm a lot closer to home. But I bump right over to first, so 6:30 to 2:30. I'm in the gym by 3:30 now. And I'm doing essentially what you guys are doing, except I'm maybe up a little earlier in the morning. Well, at least what I was doing in college. I don't know how it's set up for you guys, but
Yeah.
our practice started at 4 and I was done by about like 7:30.
Yeah.
So it's just always worked out that I've never had to work a 9 to 5.
Yeah. I see. So you kind of got where you're either earlier in the morning or later at night
Yeah.
and able to train the
Yeah.
opposite. Out of those two situations, like which did you like better? Did you like the night shift or early shift?
I definitely appreciate the morning shift now. It's definitely the night shift was cool because the first thing you did in that morning with your full head of steam was you went and trained, and that was cool and all, but that was grueling work that I was doing. Where I am now, I've worked myself up the chain. I'm doing more of a back office engineering, but I'm still on that shift. I think, it's much better for my body to be on first shift, especially for the sleep. I don't mind waking up at 5:30, but I can't be staying up till 1 a.m. anymore.
Yeah. See,
I wonder how my body would fare if I went back and I tried to do that second shift life again. I think I was only able to survive because I was like 22, 23 years old.
oh yeah, that's fair. Getting sleep that'll definitely do it.
Yeah.
100%. So obviously you're getting into this year now and indoors and everything, but go looking like towards the summer and towards the trials and everything. Like, what are your goals and everything for this year?
I mean, last year I didn't make outdoor nationals. It's getting incredibly competitive for men and shot. I made it in 2021 to the trials. So first step right now is hitting a mark that can get me to the trial. Hopefully that's somewhere between 20 and 2050. I think that's doable. Pretty easily doable if I can put this shit together. It's hard to really say though. It's been a very slow start to the year. I've had 2 indoor meets. The first indoor meet I threw 1670. The second indoor meet I threw 1790. These are numbers that I haven't thrown this poorly since my sophomore year in college, like 8-9 years ago. So it's definitely a humbling experience, but it's coming back together, and I'm remembering how to throw. And
Yeah.
get there though.
Well, yeah. What do you do? Because I feel that I understand, like, just when you have those bad meets and bad days, like, what have you been doing? What do you normally do when you're going through like a period like that to try to like get yourself back into what you can do?
Well, right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to react the same way that I did when I was back in college, because that's when I was just grooving. And the way I would have reacted to a bad meet back in college is I would just go out and take more reps. But I wouldn't try to change anything. I wouldn't try to do anything with my distance. All I would do is I would try to, load up a bigger head of steam and knock it into second gear and just muscle the thing further without losing positions. But I wasn't thinking don't lose positions. These past couple of years, whenever I would hit a wall, whether it just be like, wow, I can't throw as far in this session, my first instinct is you're doing something wrong in the throw. You need to change something technically. I hit 20 meters in 2021, and instantly I'm like, okay, but what's the next breakthrough that's going to get me to 2050? It was, I don't know where along the line, like, my mentality changed that I had to change up my technique to throw further. But I got to get back to just, honing in the position that I had honed in 4 or 5 years ago and just sticking with it. And I'm sure, Dane's been saying this for years at this point, I'm sure, and I'm just hearing it now. But, better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. And I was watching, like I said earlier, I was watching that podcast, and it was very interesting to me because y'all were talking about how you look at like numbers and use like analytical type stuff, looking at your throw. And I like write different stuff down, but I definitely don't go into like that sort of like detail. So like, are you still doing stuff like that? And like, if not, like, what was that like?
I'll show you here because I've got everything. Here we go. So right here is my spreadsheet.
Oh, wow.
You can see it there. So every single competition name, I have literally like how many grams of caffeine I had for the meet. How did I feel physically, mentally, technically? What was the weather conditions? What was my best mark? What was the average mark? Every single throw that I've taken competitively with the 16 is right here. It goes up forever. It's right now at, let's see, 100. This will be the 192nd 16-pound competition that I'll be in. So that's competition. I also have, and let me find this folder. Programs. This is every single program that I've had.
Wow.
Since 2013. And I started in a notebook. And I said, damn, I don't want to lose this data. So I remember sitting on my parents' back porch when we started switching over to Excel files and not just being dictated every single day. And I took a photo of every single goddamn page in this notebook. So you want to know what I lifted back in 2013 on a specific day? I could tell you.
Yeah.
But
that's incredible.
That's just who I've always been with that kind of stuff.
I was about to say, so do you just use that to look back on it and try to improve? Like, what exactly do you do looking at stuff like that?
So I don't know at this point that it's really helping me in any way. Like, I think at this point it's kind of like habit, and I like having statistical analysis and numbers. Like, I'm not adapting training to anything like that anymore. Yeah. I don't think I ever was. Even looking at it and saying like, oh, like you threw a PR when you were throwing these these training weights. Like, I don't think that really means anything anymore. I just think it's cool to have that record and to be able to look back and say, yeah, I don't know. I'm not using it.
Yeah.
There was definitely a time. There were times where I was saying like, dude, you're hitting your big marks on throw 5 and throw 6. And it would keep me mentally in the fight because I knew there was always, a chance that another one was coming. But at this point, it's just kind of a pet project to keep it all together.
Heck yeah, no, that's cool. I definitely did not expect that was like crazy and detailed and everything. I'll write down
the crazy thing I did. The crazy thing I did, not to interrupt you here, but the crazy thing I did, when I was in college, I got a Lehigh crew neck sweatshirt, and I probably still have this goddamn thing stored somewhere. But I would, after every single competition, write the best mark from that meet on the back of this crew neck sweatshirt and wear it like a letterman's jacket. I was underlining all of my PRs, and I kept up with it. I don't think I was wearing it like my senior year, but I wore it to every single goddamn meet up to that point. That's how like I met Sam and Noah, who I ended up training with full time, and they're like, this kid's fucking crazy. But that's just, I was like obsessed with it at that time. Not that I'm not as much anymore, but I think it's definitely been dialed down a little bit.
Yeah, I was about to say it makes sense. I guess engineering and like numbers and different things like that, like keeping track of that, like 100%. Because I love math and stuff, but I can't be that organized. It doesn't work in my head. But that's pretty incredible, man. I've seen like I know I'll see all our people writing down in journals and different things, and that's usually what I'll do. Like I'll have a notebook and like write different things down. But you got a lot of you can go back and look at specifically what you lifted on the exact day and everything. So do you go back in like after the lift and like put notes of like what exactly you did?
So that's like the big thing right now. So that's what probably the biggest changes this year, and this is like mandated by Dane, but it's something that like I've really taken to heart is before every meet I set a technical goal, a distance goal, and 2 weight goals for the weight room before every single practice. But it just forces me where I like to, kind of try all these different cues and stuff like that. It forces me to ground myself in my cues. And then I come back in and I say, what was your general feelings? What were areas that you need to improve on? What was good? And did you use any new cues today? And like forcing myself, like, dude, I don't want to have to write that I use new cues. So stop thinking about that and focus back in on what you're doing. So that's been helping me a lot, just focusing on those 2 things. So.
Heck yeah. No, because I understand that completely. Because I'll go through throwing sessions and it's like by the end of it, it's like, well, I was working on this at the beginning, but then I felt like I needed to do this, and then you'll get lost in what's all going on.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But all right, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. It was really good talking to you, and yeah, hopefully you have a good year this year. I know you're gonna do great. You're gonna be working hard and everything. I'll be rooting for you for sure.
I appreciate
making the glide great again.
Yeah, if anything, I'm going to be trying hard.
Hell yeah. That's all you can do.
I'll be one of the hardest workers out there, yeah.
All right, man. I appreciate it.